over the years then that happens all the time with campaigns, but the first time that मैं ऐसा ही सोचा और ऐसा हो गया is now getting very embarrassing. So all this is going to come. I'm just wondering when it started.
Welcome to Creative Talkative with Ketki Tewary.
Yeah, we're creative and talkative. There's no stopping this. There's no topping this. Time to explain what's in our veins, what's in our minds. Take a peek into these lives. Yeah, we're creative and talkative. There's no stopping this. There's no topping this.
Today on Creative Talkative, we are getting talkative with Agnello Dias, who is a stalwart of the Indian advertising industry. He has been a recipient of several Indian and international industry accolades, including winning India's first ever Grand Prix at Cannes and first ever titanium integrated lion. He has been jury and also featured through award books for The One Show, Clio, D&AD, New York Fest and many more. We get him to talk about his radical journey in a simple, grounded manner, just like he is. How does it feel to be so perfect, like almost flawless?
And I don't think I am perfect or flawless. I don't think anybody is, because if any of us were perfect or flawless, they would not be very boring. So we have our rough edges. We just try to show the better side to the world and keep the other side hidden. Some of us do it better than others and some of us don't.
So advertising was by chance or by choice?
It was by chance. I don't think 90% of the writers at that time were all by chance of the 80s and 90s, because of the simple reason that there was no advertising writing course in existence. So after school I went to a college in Vadala over here, which is called Ambedkar College.
Okay.
So you heard of Shootout in Vadala?
Yes.
I have seen the Shootout live.
Oh, you have?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the only shootout I've seen in my life, but I was standing there,
Oh.
actually. The natural progression for people who are not very good at studies like me and happen to be good at some sport like football was to start playing football and get a job for playing
Correct.
football in some bank. So I was playing football for the college, and I stopped playing because I had turned what is now called professional, but I was playing for New India Assurance Company's proper football player
Oh,
in
okay.
first division.
Okay.
And whole idea, everybody's feeling was that you do a graduation and then you get an officer's posting, and then it's that sports quota
Yeah.
kind of thing. I'd also failed the 12th standard once, so I had repeated class. So for the 6 months or 1 year, I was doing a temporary kind of these jobs where I remember for Seat tires, they'll give you stickers and you go and paste them on the bumpers of cars. So that it's a job.
Huh.
And you have to do it very skillfully, because if the car owner catches you, he'll beat you up. So you have to go
Correct.
hiding and paste all these stickers. So I used to do all that. When my brother told me to go and meet Sanjay Ghosh, that was the first time I realized that there is an industry called advertising. Otherwise,
Okay.
I used to think that people who make the products make the ads.
Acha, got
Correct?
it.
If Pepsi makes Pepsi, they'll make the Pepsi ad also.
Yeah.
Just like they do packaging, right?
Yeah.
So later I realized ये अलग,
Yeah.
the separate industry, where it looked fun enough, and probably was the only place which didn't ask for qualifications. Because our
Correct.
qualifications were poor, repeater. So I applied for an ad and gave some copy test in an agency called DART, D-A-R-T, which was in Worli. I don't think it's there now. So then I started at 275 rupees a month. And then I worked for there in publicity for 2 or 3 years. And that's where I met Nandini. And she was in the media department. And she had left and gone to Linters. So I used to keep telling her to try and see if I can get a job in Linters. And she spoke to some people 2 or 3 times. It didn't happen. Then finally I showed my work. So then I got a job there. They hired me for 4,000 rupees a month. So I was so happy I got married. And then I met Jax and Sridhar and Girish Rangan, who was actually a servicing guy, but was the first guy who hired me, because the creative people had not joined. Jax and Sridhar, there was no creative director to hire me. So Girish Rangan and Kesi Katrak actually hired me.
India's first Grand Prix at the Cannes, and that was like, that was the beginning of a lot of international merits and medals coming our way.
One of the things that used to happen when I used to speak to judges and all there is, in the first round, they spend a lot of time on certain entries that they are familiar with for various criteria. It may be from a country that is known for good work, like Brazil or Singapore or US, or it may be from an agency that is known for good work. the biggest insight about Khan, unlike any other sport, is the toughest round to get past is the first round. If you get past the first round, very likely you'll get a good medal. That first round is when all the best work goes out. For many years, it was an uphill task because India has never come up only. So many times we used to ask judges that, did you see this? We have not seen it, even though it's gone past him. For a campaign, it's always tougher because what happens is in an ad, you may do one good ad and one good film, and that is good, it's ho gaya.
Correct.
But in a campaign, there are 30, 40 ads, 8 or 9 films. So all of it collectively has to be, good enough for the campaign to win. You can't say have one good piece in that and the others are bad, then you don't win.
I remember your thumbs up, the bungee jumping campaign. So how did that happen? That was one of your firsts.
Yeah, so probably the first campaign where I got known outside the agency. In those days, nobody was doing action, sport or anything in India. Nobody had thought of doing a story with an action film for a soft drink, which in those days was like not only famous, it was very controversial because I think it may have been one of the first ads in India where you have to put a warning.
Yeah.
Which now everybody puts, but that was the first.
Yeah.
That was the first one. So when we win awards and all over the years, there are some things which are recognition for your work, which are not an award, but it is an even bigger recognition because that is like a true vindication of your efforts. So in Thumbs Up, there was 2 things. Okay. One was that the sports page of Times of India carried an article, normal article, saying India's first bungee jump was performed on Saturday during the shooting of a soft drink commercial. So it was a sports article. And the second thing was 2 or 3 years later, if you used to go to Khandala, now I don't know, but in that sightseeing tour of Khandala, A Point, Echo Point, O Point, this place where we shot was called Thumbs Up Point and people used to go there and see it.
Oh, acha.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of work that I've read of yours is the Bajaj Caliber.
Caliber, yeah.
The entire campaign actually.
Yeah. So in their brief, they said we want to celebrate the loser.
Okay.
Celebrate struggle.
Okay.
Because very few people win in life. 99% lose. They are all struggling.
That was a brilliant insight. Right?
Never an ad is done for them. It's always done on the 1% who wins.
Correct.
So here's your challenge to me. They said that is losing and struggling ko glorify
karna hai, haan.
World Cup came. Everybody used to do an ad at India. Will Caliber waited. The day India lost, then the Caliber that came. What to do when we fail? So it was all about failure and losing. So 2 or 3 memorable things. I think for the song I went to brief Majroo Sultanpuri.
Oh.
Who's no more. And I was very scared of briefing him because he almost speaks in Urdu.
Correct.
Not even Hindi. And I have my Bombay Hindi. So I had taken one guy, but he was a friendly guy. He's lived in Bombay, so he knew about the Bombay lingo. So then it broke the ice, and he wrote that song. Shankar sang it.
Yeah.
Ehsan composed it. And I remember at one point the client or somebody, I don't know, they asked for 30 or 40 art pulls of each of the ads, and we gave it to them. Those written print ads were so popular that in the Bajaj stall, they almost, not much of a price, I think 10 rupees or some 20 rupees, they were selling the art pulls and people were paying money and buying the ad.
Okay, so the second one that I want to talk about is your Times of India Pakya ad. It's such an emotional, such a beautiful ad. And I believe even the client was moved to tears.
Yeah, when I presented the script.
But when you're presenting a script, how does that move someone so much that they can actually have tears?
I don't know, it's never happened. I was just, because by that time in my mind I had rewritten, so I was not feeling that teary-eyed and all. Mostly when you're thinking of creative, you're almost doing mathematics.
Yeah.
You're not like, what is the common perception is I sit somewhere on a beach and some enlightenment strikes me and I say, nahi hote.
Yeah.
You're saying, ye karega to ye hoega. If I put this there, maybe emotion is low here, maybe this is high there. So you're actually fitting things together. So you're not really thinking of the emotional impact of it. The emotional impact is coming because of you as a human being, all your life, how you have lived. That's how it's making a effect on what you're changing and putting. So it's coming subliminally. I thought it was a good script because I was just trying to marry 75 years of Times of India, and I just took tragedy and happiness and put them together, which is what we call the Chaplinist graph of 2 extreme emotions.
Okay.
And When I was growing up in Parel, there was a boy called Pakya. So I said, let's name
Let's
him Pakya.
call him Pakya. And the third one I want to talk about is the Nike one, the cricket one. Yeah. So that again is a very, first and foremost, it's very unlike a Nike ad to begin with. So how would you convince a client to do an ad like that?
So when they came to us, all we said, I think broadly, in broad strokes, is that what was a gentleman's game played by people in whites on the English greens and having cucumber sandwiches and tea break and this break has come to India and become a rough, tough sport where people are playing in the streets and everywhere. And maybe that's too hard or rough for any superficial advertising brand to show. But Nike, I thought, had the license to do that because they have stood for pure sport in that manner. So originally, the ad was to be shot with all the Indian team cricketers playing.
Okay.
Okay, so I had written with that, and I was always worried about the shoot because I said I don't know whether these cricketers will agree to these stunts and perform, and they have injuries and they may have to use body doubles and computer graphics. Never good. So, okay, let's do the best we can. But the morning of the shoot, when the set was set up, there were 2 or 3 cricketers who had individual contracts with other sports companies, and BCCI had this contract with Nike.
Okay.
So I think those 2 or 3 individual cricketers decided to not show up. So I had to rewrite the whole ad then with ordinary people. And the only 2 cricketers that Nike had actually signed was Sreesanth and Zahir Khan.
Who are there?
Who are there because now they are Nike cricketers. So then now in this new context, I can't have Sreesanth and Zahir Khan as heroes playing, right?
Correct.
So I just put them, they come out and they see this and they go away. But then I put regular cricketers. But 2 or 3 key things, in the execution of a film really helped, which is, one is I had this Konkani song which I wanted to rewrite because I didn't want to have typically North India dominates our cultural landscape.
Yes.
Correct? Whether it's films or movies. Broadly, what the world knows about India and what we call mass modern entertainment in India is Punjabi stroke North India.
Yeah.
There's no other India.
There is no other India, yeah.
Largely. But I wanted to take some, and I knew this song, so I had played it to Abhinay, who's a friend, and he said, acha hai, we'll do this. But before that, I told him, you know what we'll do? We'll cast. We want these street side kids. We want them to do these stunts. So let's cast stuntmen as real people. So they're all stuntmen.
Oh.
And for the stuntmen, 2 things happen. One is they look like real people anyway.
Correct.
They are doing the stunts, so you can't have a body double for a stuntman.
Yeah.
And for the stuntmen themselves, for those young stuntmen of 18 years, it was the first time that they were doing actually a role for themselves. They were not, so they were doing it with so much passion and so much gusto.
Right.
In that film that it all worked for us.
You're a dream to work with even for people who are not creative, and people say that you have a strategic way of thinking. You can think like an account planner, and you have this watertight way of convincing clients when you have to really step up and do that.
So I don't I don't place too much importance in these functions like creative or account planning because I just think that everybody is there to get the job done. So whatever it takes, if it involves me trying to behave like an accountant or a finance guy to get the job done, I'll do the best I can in that. So for me, I don't see myself compartmentalized like that in silos. I'm also a believer that creative function is not a superior function, it's just a different function. But a lot of the creative people think that because of the nature of the function they do, they are superior to other people. And therefore posturing is one way of getting yourself evaluated. Posturing as, you're this crazy creative guy who just is blessed by the Almighty and you just close your eyes and ideas come to you. It's a great way of creating
an aura around you.
An aura for creative because there's no other way. So there should be no ego in creative because creative is just, another function. Like a really good plumber to me is a far superior human being than an average creative person.
Interesting. So you like to work on brands, think rationally, and brands which require some kind of logic. But most of your work is on the emotional side.
I may have a tendency to think extremely logically and I almost many times think creative is actually mathematics. It's just a question of in mathematics when you put these things together you use digits and numbers.
Yeah.
In creative you use pictures and words and sounds and
Correct.
feelings. But when you're finally fitting it together, it is as mathematical or as scientific as a real science, which pictures you choose and all that. But because of the evaluation criteria for the two fields being so different, one just says मुझे अच्छा लगा and the other says here's the answer. That's why it's seen as completely different. But when I actually put the output to that, when I'm evaluating it, I try to evaluate it with an emotional feeling so that it doesn't show. So if you see the work that I do, I'm presuming that it doesn't show that I'm a logical, analytical, scientific mind. It shows like some creative guy did. That's the dream of every creative, that we will break our head and work hard and sweat bullets over rewriting and rewriting and rewriting like a laborer in a factory over doing something. But when it comes out, it should look like aisa hi aaya hai. So I have a favorite phrase, that the key is spontaneity. If you can fake spontaneity, then you've got it made. So the effort to look effortless is a huge effort.
We used to call them Aggie's nuggets. These things that you would come up with spontaneously, which used to become lessons that they remember for years together. So I have a few that I've heard of, which is, one is our art is applied. I know they're all self-explanatory, but for the benefit of people listening and watching.
Yeah, because true art cannot mix, correct? A sculpture is a sculpture. You cannot call it a painting, or you cannot call it a poem, correct? And a song is a song. You cannot call it a movie. The dogma and the grammar that applies to each art form is watertight. And that's why it is called a true art form. If you know this, you know this.
Correct.
But in the case of advertising, all of these art forms are advertising. Sculpture can be advertising, music can be advertising, sound can be advertising, literature can be advertising, pictures can be advertising. So we are actually curators. We are not creators.
I've never thought like that. It's so interesting.
We also happen to have a skill and a craft of creating. In case we cannot use this, some of us can write or some of us can draw. But you don't need to be able to write or draw to be an advertising person. You can just be an intelligent person who can make lateral connections, and you can be a very successful, good advertising creative person. We just use pure arts. We are the curators of the museum in which all these things, oh piche lao, ye aage lo.
So another one is talent is overrated, temperament is underrated.
Yeah, in advertising, because when we do ads, the people who are not successful or bitter or embittered about advertising, their common grouse is that they are unlucky, that they are as creative as the better guy there, but somehow uska big gaya, mera nahi big. My ad, which is in my scrapbook or in my rough book, is as good as this film that is winning award, but mine didn't get made into a film, he's got made. And I think that is a notion that they have to be disabused of, because the truth is everybody has cannon fodder failure rate. Everybody's work gets rejected. The difference between a good creative guy and a bad creative guy is a good creative guy's 6th best ad is better than a bad creative guy's 6th best ad. First best sabka equal hai. So if you take a young boy from school playing cricket in Azad Maidan and you say cover drive khel ke batao, his cover drive will be as good as Sachin Tendulkar's cover drive. But Sachin Tendulkar can play it many times when the sun is hot and when the bowlers are bowling very fast in many countries of the world. That's why he's Sachin Tendulkar. Ek compare karega sab equal hai. And that is why the secret to success in commercial creativity is not talent. It is creative stamina.
Wow.
It is creative resilience. How many times, how strong will you come in your 6th best attempt?
Correct. And the last one is, there's a difference between advertisement and advertising.
So, what we normally call advertisement is what most of the multinational agencies have been doing for, the big agencies, networks have been doing for the last 100 years, which is print, television. Now, these are small facets in advertising, correct? The infrastructure, the ecosystem to execute this usually lay within the agency. Artist was there, typographer was there, finishing artist was there, writer was there. So every time we went, we used to suggest a print ad because we can do it, correct? But actually the client does not want a print ad. He just wants his brand to look good, correct? Right. You are going and saying every time that, please do a print ad and a television ad because you have this infrastructure in your organization. But imagine you didn't have an agency and a client just said, make me look good. You may would have just gone and said, kuch mat karo, just change the packaging. or don't do nothing. Just wait till you collect enough money.
Correct.
Because I don't have a bunch of copywriters to feed or a bunch of art directors to feed. I have to think of them. So my judgment on what is right for the client will get colored by the boxes I have to take at my end. Correct? Advertising is the whole of everything that a client would want to make his brand to look good. Some parts of that are advertisements.
Right.
Correct. Sometimes brand behavior. If you look at Apple, for now they have ads, but earlier they didn't have ads.
They never had
The
ads.
box they created was the advertising.
Correct.
The way it looked was the advertising. That they were communicating to people.
Yeah.
You got a feeling कि ऐसा type of company होगा. वो box ही देख के. We have not seen any ad.
Yes.
Correct. So that is communication. That is advertising. But it's not something that somebody would have recommended if they went to an agency. They would say film बनाओ, print बनाओ. They would not say ऐसा box बनाओ कि ये box देख के लोगों को.
Right.
So advertising includes all ways of making your brand come across in a positive light for consumers. And some parts of that advertising is advertisement as we know it, print ad, TV ad, mass media advertising.
So you've always paved and walked on your own path and taken radical decisions, walked away from situations, things, positions that people find difficult, right? And you kind of set a new trend for a lot of creatives who probably didn't have the guts to do that. Have you planned your life or these things just kind of happened?
I say this very often that 50% of the time you make the right decision,
Okay.
and the other 50% of the time you make the decision right. So you just take it and then you make it now work. You start Taproot now, you better, it's this.
Right.
I think it's Tanaji Malusare's story from Shivaji where they cut the escape rope. So they had to fight. So sometimes I say, let's just go and do this. Now, whatever till now enough thinking. Now after this, you have to make it work, make it right. So if you do something where the odds are stacked against you so much, and then you don't do well, nobody is going to say, look, he didn't do well, because anyway you are supposed to fail. Correct.
Right.
If you do well, they say, in spite of this, he does well. So for me, it was made complete logical sense that I have everything to win and nothing to lose. Then again in JWT, after winning a Grand Prix and all, most people told me, you won India's first Grand Prix, this is enough for you to run a whole successful career. Travel around the world, do this and all. I felt that we should start, I had worked in Leo Burnett, which was a very creative agency. I had worked in JWT, which was India's largest agency at that time as the single national creative head, not a multiple group like now is the fashion. So there was no other way to go up or down but to go sideways, and sideways is to start something of your own, which is neither big nor the most creative. It is just something that you are creating out of scratch. So that's what I tried with Taproot, and then once the Taproot model got over and started rolling, I felt I should do nothing.
I think to begin with, joining the industry when you did was itself a risk, right? Taking the plunge and,
Yeah, but for people in my position, it was not a risk because we had nothing else anyway.
I understand.
So I have this contrary theory to, when people have this thing of sportsmen who come from poor places.
Yeah.
Correct, and then they do, in spite of all this. I think it's the easiest thing in the world. और क्या करते हैं? So I don't think it's a great thing, and it wasn't a great thing for me because nobody would have said, "Arey yaar, he tried advertising and he failed at it."
Yeah.
I was anyway doing nothing.
So every time you've made a decision like this and, did you have a kind of a reset button?
So my desperation panic button is strong.
Okay.
And when I'm at that, I'm at fully, so whenever I do some change like this, it automatically kicks in, right? Because now you've done it.
Right.
Now you better do it right. So I get desperate and panic internally about things that I have to do much earlier than normal people would. But I have a favorite way of describing this for a creative career is that when all of us started, it's like a double engine train.
Okay.
The front engine is inspiration, the back engine is desperation. Correct. So now desperation engine is stopped because paisa hai, ghar hai, sab hai. Now the inspiration, something comes, I'll do it. Correct. But sometimes to some people, not me, who are geniuses like maybe Rahman or something, the inspiration engine itself is so strong that is enough.
That is enough.
Okay, then you become Da Vinci or Beethoven or Mozart or whatever. But for most normal people, we need both. We need thoda that and thoda this. I'm quite dismissive about what I do or what I've done or what I'm capable of. Now, I didn't think I'm dismissive. I think I'm pretty realist about what I've done or do. But people around me say you're too dismissive, you make light of the fact that you've done all these campaigns and all, but I just think it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. You be in the right place at the right time, you hang around for 30 years like I did, you'll get this many campaigns by default in your plate. But everybody thinks I'm being overly modest and all, but I think it's true. You just be there around in these agencies, kuch na kuch acha niklega. I think most of what it is now, I feel, is because I'm really essentially a lazy guy. So to be arrogant or smart or political takes a lot of effort. To be clever and say, bitch about, you have to keep track, na? ये बोला वो कौन करेगा वो सब? Better to, so you have to be energetic and have stamina to constantly do this. So most of what I do is common sense because that is the shortest way of doing it. It's a shortcut. It's the laziest way of living a life like this is to just not do anything.
Let us tell you what we wanna say. Not about just getting paid or achieving fame. It's about the everyday blood, sweat and tears, dreams and fears, everything you gotta hear. Listen, from the first steps to the final leap, making headlines in history. How they did it, it's no mystery. Take a seat, honestly. Yeah, we're creative and talkative. There's no stopping this, there's no topping this. Time for honesty with some novelty. Sit down with KT, you just hit the lottery.
Hope you had as much fun listening as we did talking. Do subscribe for updates on our upcoming episode out every Friday. Like, share and follow us on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram as well as creativetalkative.com. That's creative with a K.